All right, well, what we're going to try and do at this juncture is actually give you an idea of what exactly has taken place. And the question we are asking is, did the strikes destroy significant elements of Iran's nuclear materials? Are key assets still intact? That's what we'll be looking at. But this video that you see on your screen right now is of some of the attacks which have taken place as Iran attacked Ashdod in Israel. You can see a vehicle going down the road with a huge explosion. There has been a tit-for-tat retaliation between Israel and Iran today, with Israel really stepping up its attacks and taking out several areas in Tehran itself. We're going to move on now, take a look at the situation on the Tehran skyline, which you can see smoke has covered the Tehran skyline. Israel has been amping up its attacks. Police headquarters have been struck. There have also been attacks possibly on a university and so many other targets which have been affiliated with the Iranian military. In fact, in the last little while, Iran has issued an advisory, Israel has issued an advisory to Israeli nationals saying that, look, you need to get out of areas which are close to Iranian military facilities. So it's, this is yet another area which has been targeted. This is that jail that I was talking about, which is full of opposition leaders. Those opposition leaders, whether it's an effort to try and get them to escape or not, we don't know. But quite clearly, by continuing to target the Iranian military, by continuing to target police headquarters, the Israelis are trying to perhaps move towards what many suspect this is all about, regime change. Is that the case? We're going to be looking at that closely. In addition to that, there have been all of these attacks which have taken place in all of these military bases of the Iranian Air Force. Several aircraft have been struck on the ground. At this stage, the Iranian Air Force essentially is non-operational. They can't really do anything. The Israeli Air Force is entirely dominant over this entire area. All right, so we're going to take a look at another important development today with the Iranian foreign minister meeting President Vladimir Putin. Putin has condemned Israel's aggression at this juncture. It does need to be asked, as he condemns Israel's aggression, what about his own country's aggression in Ukraine? But, it's a different set of priorities in a different set of circumstances. But Iran at this juncture is backing or is counting on countries like Russia, which they've been typically close to, but it's been transactional in many senses. Iran does import a lot of Russian weaponry, but they are counting on Russia for help. And Vladimir Putin has condemned the attacks which have taken place and said that they've been illegal. So that's the Iranian foreign minister's meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. That's another important development which has taken place today. What I'd also like to do is move to my next big focus, and in fact the focus of this program to a large extent. Did the strikes destroy significant elements of Iran's nuclear materials, or are key assets still intact? That's what we're trying to look at this particular juncture. So the first point over here is that this is imagery of the attacks which has actually taken place. And in as much as the targets have, the attacks have taken out targets in Isfahan and elsewhere, the big question is that is this enough to ensure that the nuclear potential of Iran has been destroyed? Because there are also untargeted assets, and a great deal has to do with the know-how that Iran has collected over decades in nuclear enrichment, right? In uranium enrichment. Let's go to the next point. What we do know about the attack on Fordo is that it was quite successful. This was what was struck by the Americans yesterday. There were entry points, and there's been presumably a great deal of damage inside. This has been carved into a hillside. But just prior to that, and if we go to the next point, then we can actually see that there are these land routes which are actually available, land roads. And in the days prior to this particular facility being attacked yesterday, there were trucks which were moving out of these areas. So the question of unhit facilities is something that we need to look at very closely as well. So that raises the larger question, and let's go to the next point on what really has been achieved over here. Yes, Iran may have lost its nuclear potential for a while, but the know-how exists. It is still a member of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. It's signed on to that. If they exit that, and if they still have enriched uranium, which they've taken out, for example, from Fordo, let's go to the next page on this. If enriched uranium has actually been moved out, then the big question is there a strategic shortfall in terms of the military operations which have taken place? That's what we're looking at now. Joining us now, Alex Gandler, Deputy Spokesperson at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Israel. Thank you very much for being with us, Mr. Gandler. The big question that we are looking at this juncture, what exactly is Israel's objective at this stage? Is it to ensure that Iran loses its nuclear potential, or are you looking at regime change?
Shalom from Jerusalem. Well, we have two main objectives at the moment. That's how we started this operation with. The first objective is to dismantle the Iranian nuclear program capability, the current one and the possible future one as well. Iran cannot have any nuclear capabilities regarding weapon systems and so on. The second one is the dismantlement of the ballistic missile program. Actually, the way to deliver the potential atomic weapons. So these are the two goals that we set out to do. I think we're doing fine for now. Together with our American partners, we've damaged Iran's capabilities quite a lot, both by striking different sites around Iran, but also by killing and eliminating the scientists who are part of this enrichment program that was going fastly towards developing nuclear weapons. We've seen it get to 60% enrichment, something you don't need for civilian causes. This was what they were saying constantly. We're doing it for civilian infrastructure. Obviously, you need only 4 to 5% in order to have civilian uses for it. They have went up to 60, and we're weeks away from getting closer to 90, which is the weapons grade atomic fissile material.
Is my next question. It's absolutely clear that Israel strikes and the American strikes have destroyed the existing facilities of Iran. But from Fordo itself, there were images, satellite images of trucks moving out in the days before the American strikes, and therefore there's this concern about up to 700 kilograms of enriched uranium having actually been moved out. So, in as much as the plants, the nuclear reactors, the plants may have been destroyed, do you not believe that Iran's potential to fabricate even a dirty bomb is something that remains a threat for Israel?
Well, Iran's wanting to develop these nuclear weapons is quite obvious. This is why we went out on this operation. The strike itself on Fordo was quite successful in our point of view. The BDO, battle damage, or BDA, battle damage assessment is still being carried out to which effect it was operationally successful. Regarding dirty bombs or nuclear weapons that can be facilitated from anything that was smuggled out of Fordo or Natanz, possible. We are looking into intelligence into it. Obviously, if we find any more of that material, Israeli warplanes will be above it and we will destroy that capability.
Do you therefore believe that your war against Iran is something that's going to be protracted? It's not something that may end very quickly. That if the battle is ultimately to ensure that Iran no longer has the potential to develop nuclear weapons, or that it ceases to have a nuclear capability, that's something Israel would need to be battling for an extended period of time. That the attacks we are seeing back and forth, it won't end there. It'll go on for a period of time.
Well, going into this operation wasn't lightly. We've waited many years. The Iranian nuclear program has been going on for the last 30 years. So deciding on attacking Iran is not something that was decided lightly, not here in Israel and not anywhere else. Our decision to do so started a process of us wanting to finish it.
Right.
I don't think we're able to stop at the moment in order to let Iran rest through, in order for them to rearm, recharge their engines, take control of their facilities, develop more missiles to shoot at Israel. We're not in the position of stopping at the moment. We have to carry on and finish this operation and finish the job and reach our two goals, as I stated, the nuclear program and the missile program.
All right, Alex Gadler, thank you very much. Deputy spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel, speaking to us over there on where Israel stands as far as its mission against Iran is concerned. I'm joined by Burzine Wagmer at the Center for Iranian Studies at SOAS at the University of London, Ambassador D.P. Srivastav, Ori Goldberg, a political commentator, and John Rosumondo for a perspective from America. Thank you all very much for being with us. Burzine Wagmer, at this juncture, what options does Iran realistically have? I mean, there is obviously open defiance, there is reaching out to Russia for help, but realistically, as Israel appears to intensify its military strikes on Tehran itself, what options does the regime have? Do you expect them to continue to hunker down even in the face of increased losses?
Yes, I would. Even if Khamenei is bunkered and Iran is facing its so-called Berlin moment, as the Allies converged in April 45 as an analogy which comes to my mind immediately. He is besieged, the country is broke, but you need to understand the Shia Messianic-minded mentality. And Vishnu, please remember, Muharram starts, the month of Muharram and the Islamic New Year commences on Thursday this week, and in 10 days will be the high point of passion play with Ashura, which is a charged time for the Iranians and Persian Shias as such. So it couldn't be a more poignant moment, and Khamenei will prefer to go down in history as a martyr rather than cave in, because that has been the leitmotif of the revolution and its ideals. And of course, the question of capitulation doesn't arise because over 46 years, this regime and its those who have benefited from it, namely the Revolutionary Guards and other stakeholders, have had much to profit from it. So why would they let go of the situation? And coming to Foreign Minister Arakchi's visit to Moscow, just to show that the so-called axis of resistance is still live and kicking when it's nothing but a hollow ornamental gesture at best. Neither Beijing nor Moscow will do anything with Tehran, make no mistake, despite the fact that there is a Russo-Iran strategic treaty which went into effect, which was signed in January 2025 and ratified by Putin and the parliament in Moscow this April past. It's not like your Indo-Soviet 1971 20-year treaty that you had. It is nothing along those lines. And yes, one more thing to point out also, it was at Foreign Minister Lavrov's behest, that is to say Russia, that when the JCPOA agreement was effected in July 2015, the snapback clause had been inserted at Russia's behest, which, had none of this taken place, Vishnu, was supposed to come into effect come 18th October 2025, when the EU would have made a case, or members of the EU, along with Britain and others, that sanctions, the full slew of sanctions would come into effect because Iran is in flagrant non-compliance. Coming on to the 31st May 25 IAEA report, which mentioned not just 650 kilos of enrichment, but also 3 new sites were discovered, such as Varamin and Lavazin Shan in northeast Tehran, and the one near southeast Tehran, the new Tehran International Airport, for instance, and that they passed off as a carpet cleaning factory. So there has been an element of skullduggery consistent with what the Iranians have done. And Rafael Grossi, Director General of IAEA, pointed that out in the report when 19 of 35 members of the IAEA board overwhelmingly formalized and noted Iran on 1st June this year that it is in violation of its obligations as an NPT signatory. So the regime is besieged and they will try to have a last stand, but concomitantly, I will also add this. It's not going to go down like a pack of cards because it still is a strong state. And if any other dispensation were to come into effect, it could well be another hardline Islamist Shia millenarian regime as such. And one with more, and Vishnu, this is the thing, 79 to now, Iran in studies, we've always noticed the clerics at the forefront. They will be taking a backseat now as the uniformed sorts, the IRGC and the armed forces will become increasingly important, and Khamenei will well lean heavily on them in times to come.
Okay. Oray Goldberg, it just seems that the entire prospect of regime change, and it really depends on who you are asking in Israel or in America on whether that is the actual goal in all of this. It just seems that despite the military attacks and the relative success of the military attacks, achieving that is something else. How do you actually see that translating into a movement on the ground, or is that the expectation?
Oh, I don't think it's the expectation at all, and I don't think that's what Israel is doing, with all due respect to the Deputy Speaker of the Foreign Ministry and to Mr. Wagner, who spoke just now. The reduction of Iran to some sort of fanatic messianic cult, the Islamic Republic, that is only looking to material gain and to perform religious tasks like marking Ashura or the month of Muharram seems, to be fair, somewhat ridiculous. And let's remember that when you ask Vishnu whether Iran can still make nuclear weapons, Iran has not made a nuclear weapon.
Right.
Israel, however, has dozens, if not hundreds, of nuclear weapons deliverable on a broad variety of platforms, as does the United States. I believe that's a fact to remember when you try to consider which party here has committed the crime of aggression and which hasn't. And the framing of this discussion as though this is just a matter of, what will those pesky Iranians do? Iranian liars, the Iranian deceivers, Iranian skullduggery, and all we've heard so far is reducing a very complicated situation to two-dimensional stereotypes at best, which I think does not do the discussion justice. As far as regime change, well, what you said is exactly true. Israel has not been able to stick to a single declared war goal for more than a day. Usually it lasts less than a day. It was about the nuclear program, at least that's what the Israeli military said. And then it was about regime change, because that's what the Minister of Defense said. And then it was back to the nuclear program the United States attacked, because Israel is careful not to alienate the United States, despite President Trump's statements. In short, it seems like the Israeli effort may be brilliant tactically, and Israel may achieve aerial dominance and can do whatever it wants in the sky above Iran. But as an Israeli in Israel right now, I can tell you that the Israeli home front is taking heavy damage, and damage that is getting heavier every day. The Iranians seem to know exactly what they're doing, and Israel's famed air defense is not particularly up to the task. So we're talking about a potential conflict here between two rivals that, are, despite Israel's tactical success, are over the mid to long term more equal than it might appear. And we are also forgetting the diplomatic effort. Instead of just describing it as Iranian skullduggery, the Iranians have always acted, at the very least, on two tracks simultaneously, the diplomatic and the military. And the Iranians right now are pursuing the diplomatic path with full vigor. They have said as much. There's no reason to suspect that they don't mean what they say. And I will remind you again, it is still unclear what the purpose of this war was. The material violations exposed by the IAEA were well known to the entire international community. And, by the way, if they were so egregious, Israel has been accusing Iran of violating its NPT obligations for 20 years. The IAEA said this was the first time Iran had ever been found in violation of those commitments. Who's telling the truth and who isn't? I think it's quite clear from the reality that we're seeing on the ground that regime change is not being affected, that even those who are opponents of the Islamic Republic in Iran at the moment consider Iran in its entirety as being under attack, not just the quote-unquote state, and that Israel's pretentious, vile attempts to present its relentless bombing of Iran's large cities as attempts to liberate the Iranian people are precisely geared for Israeli ears and not for Iranian ears, and are getting the response they deserve from the Iranian people on the ground.
John Rosamondo, how does this end?
Well, let's put it this way. I'll correct my colleague here. The name of this operation the Israelis have put together is Operation Rising Lion. The symbol of the pre-revolutionary is Iranian government. My Iranian source spoke with her friends inside Iran, and one of them said that she would love to raise a statue of Netanyahu in Tehran. I mean, we've had protests against this regime calling
Go ahead, John. Yeah.
Well, for its ouster for the past 5 or 6 years. You've had, at least 20,000 people arrested, about 1,500 people murdered by this regime. So I have to say that the Iranian people want this regime gone as much as anybody else. I mean, if we look today, the Israelis bombed the Evin prison, which is a place where the political prisoners are being held. They attacked the IRGC. So Israel is going after the jailers of this regime. So, you talk and chew gum at the same time. They're going. It's both. They want the Iranian people to rise up and replace this regime.
Do they? It makes perfect sense to attack a country and then to ask its people to do your dirty work for you. Exactly like Israel has been starving Gaza for 2 years and is now demanding that the Palestinians oust Hamas for it. That's just really persuasive evidence and dramatically persuasive framing.
You're clearly not paying attention. You're putting out narrative.
Or perhaps you're speaking from your deeply partisan political wishful thinking and have absolutely no
let's not get come on, gentlemen, let's not get personal. I will allow both of you time. John, make your point. Mr. Goldberg, I'll come to you next. Okay. John, finish your point. Mr. Goldberg, you will respond.
My point is that the goal of this operation for Israel, Operation Rising Lion, says it all. The Israelis have been talking about replacing this government. Okay. That's one of their goals, as well as the nuclear program.
Mr. Goldberg?
Do you know the biblical verse where the image of the rising lion comes from? Have you ever read it? Do you really think that the Israeli government called this Operation Rising Lion to humor the exiled Iranian opposition whom nobody in Iran takes seriously? I didn't say the population of Iran supports the Islamic Republic. I said that once you attack an entire country, expecting
all right, both of you, we are not fighting on this program. All right, both of you, hold on. Ambassador Srivastava, let me come across to you next.
He's only been pushed.
John and Mr. Goldberg, both of you, hold on. Let's have peace on this program. There's plenty of violence in the world right now. Mr. Srivastava, I think the other big concern which impacts billions across the world is the Straits of Hormuz. If there is some action over there, it impacts global markets in terms of oil. Do you foresee that as being a serious threat at this juncture? And if there is a problem over there, I mean, it could have a cascading impact. This could be a much larger conflict with a much larger consequence on the global economy.
Thank you, Vishnu. Thanks for having me on your show. Before I answer your question, let me just put something in perspective. Iran, there was a lower cost option for achieving the same end, and the lower cost option was diplomacy, JCPOA, which Iran did not walk out. It was US which walked out in 2018. When the negotiations resumed, Iran was willing to go back to it. 3.67% enrichment is allowed under NPT. US moved the goalpost to 0%. And that is how we have come to this state. When I was in Iran, I served there for 4 years. There was not much support for weaponization. Now, I'm sure that after this, that support has grown. The second point, there are always dissensions in every country. But this kind of external attack has actually rallied people around the government. Now, answering your question about the Hormuz. Closing the Hormuz is the last option. Iranian Majlis has made a recommendation but left the decision to Supreme Leader. It is unlikely that such a decision will be taken because this will hurt Arab countries across the Gulf. Iran has worked out a dita with Saudi Arabia about 3 years ago that is still holding. So I don't think it's going to disturb that, and in fact it will do so only as a measure of last resort in case it is pushed to the wall. Now let me answer your question as a hypothetical question. Suppose Hormuz gets closed, what happens then? Hormuz carries 20% of world's oil supply and about 30% of the LNG. World's oil production is at about 105 million barrels per day. So 20% is 20 million barrels per day. There is no source which can replace this. There's some talk that that OPEC plus countries which had affected a reduction of 2.2 million barrels per day, they can supply this. But 2.2 million barrels per day is no match to the loss of 20 million barrels.
Right.
There are Trans-Arabia pipelines from Saudi Arabia and UAE, but their capacity is limited. So there again, you draw a blank. So what we are looking at is a massive oil price shock in case such an eventuality actually comes to pass. And just to put things in perspective, second oil price shock, this is the downfall of Shah's regime. Iran accounted for 5 million barrel per day production. The world's total consumption was 50 million barrel, which in other words, Iran accounted for 10%. Now, yes. 10% oil supplies were removed from the market. Oil prices tripled from $11 per barrel to $33 or $36 per barrel. Here we are talking about removing 20% of the global oil supply. The shock will be catastrophic at a time when world economies, at least some of the major economies, are on the verge of recession.
Yeah. No, Ambassador, I take your point, and I think you talk a great deal of sense. Burzine, I'm running short on time. I'll give you the final word. I think there's a lot which has been said on this debate on the way out or what happens next. And I mean, we sharply divided opinions over here. How do you see this ending? Because the other way of looking at it is that Iran has a limited number of ballistic missiles left. There were some counts of them being at about 2,500 ballistic missiles. Presumably their ability to manufacture ballistic missiles has gone down. But by the same token, Israel has a finite number of arrow interceptors. And the success of the arrows and their air defense system has been reducing, it appears, over a period of time. Do you therefore see this sort of winding down the exchange of ballistic missiles and Israeli strikes?
The ballistic missile sites and other weaponry facilities were never part of the JCPOA in the first instance. Everyone ought to remember that, which is why that was always a bone of contention, and President Trump was quite right to repeal it in May 2018, because that was a supposedly no line for the Iranians. And yes, but you may mention about the Arrow system, but remember, Israel has a triple defense system, including the Iron Dome. Whittling down the Iranian arsenal is essential and has been part of the IDF's stratagem, and it has paid off so far.
All right. Look, gentlemen, we'll leave it over there. I'd like to thank you all very much for being with us. The world is in a real mess at this juncture. Let's see where this all goes. Hopefully the loss of life can be minimized.